flavor. We're covering today's top boxing news.
Okay, let's start with this. Well, the latest from Deontay, Stall Tactics Wilder. Why not have 3 fights with Luis Ortiz? Ortiz, the heavyweight division is very small, Wilder said during a post-fight press conference. You know, so why not have 2 fights? 3 fights. You know, all these guys. That's why I don't understand why none of the big fights haven't happened thus far.
Really?
If you lose, okay, rebuild yourself and get back up. Most of the time in life, many people lose, but they give up. And the great thing about life is people want to see how you fall and get back up. It's easy to stay on top. It's easy to be a winner with no losses and different things like that. You know, everybody wants to be a winner, but a real winner, a true winner, is somebody that falls from that platform because everybody want to see how they develop themselves and get back up in life.
Yeah, okay.
Well, those are hollow words coming from Deontay Wilder, who rather take his chances against the guy who he beat already instead of putting it all on the line for the undisputed heavyweight championship. Essentially, you rather have 2 to 3 fights with a guy that you beat already instead of fighting Anthony Joshua once. These comments from Deontay Wilder, but you know, it's easy to stay on top, it's easy to be a winner, but a true winner picks himself up, you know, all that crap. It all reads about as hollow as most of what you hear come out of Deontay Wilder's mouth. Because this is a guy that's sitting here saying he doesn't understand why the big fights aren't happening yet.
Oh, really?
But aren't these his words post-fight, after the Brazil fight?
This fight will happen. The big fight will happen. I promise you that. We'll come patient, come time, and I just want you guys to have patience and give us a little time to make this thing happen. The way we all benefit from it, not only just you fans, because we risk our lives in here. So we want to make sure we get the best and the most money as possible before we risking our lives. I mean, the head is not meant to be hit in the first place. So just let us get our time to iron out our differences, and you guys will know when it happens.
Yet you do recognize by what you're saying that with all due respect to these other opponents, the public does not want to see Ruiz. The public does not want to see Dominique Brazil. The public does not want to see whoever this guy is that's fighting Tyson Fury. They want to see you 3 fight like Ali fought Frazier, like Ali fought Foreman, like Foreman fought Frazier. So to be recognized in that type of breath toward the modern day, you've got to get it on. They don't want to have a whole lot more patience.
Most definitely, you know. But you know what the saying is, Jim? Good thing come to those who wait.
So I'm not understanding how Deontay Wilder could be sitting here saying he doesn't understand why the big fights haven't happened yet when he's already made it known to the public why the big fights haven't happened yet. Because they're waiting. Mm-hmm. They want everyone to be patient. Mm-hmm. Why, you ask? Because they're trying to get the best money they can get, which is what I've been telling you guys since 2018. These guys are stalling. They've been holding out for more money, and that's what they continue, and they intend to continue to do. Now these contradictions, because that's what they are, contradictory statements on the part of what is a walking, talking contradiction in Deontay Wilder, the guy who's telling you he doesn't know why the big fights haven't happened yet, but also happens to be the same guy that's telling you to wait. These contradictions, no matter how obvious they may seem to me and you,
and they're obvious,
these are not contradictions that his fans, his supporters, are gonna hold him accountable for. They're not going to demand better of the champion that they so choose to endorse. They choose to endorse this guy.
That's your guy.
But they're not going to demand better of him that, you know what, we really don't want to see an Ortiz rematch. We don't want to see that, and we don't want to see a Kaunaki fight. And you know what, there is unsettled business with Fury, but what about the Joshua fight? What about that fight? They're not going to hold this fucking guy responsible for that shit. They're going to endorse whatever outlandish shit comes out of his mouth and whatever outlandish demands he makes, and use that as an excuse, use that as a crutch to further delay the fight. That this guy, he could sit there and say, you know what, I want a million, quintillion, bajillion for $1 million guaranteed. Otherwise, I won't fight Anthony Joshua. And they will sit there and smile while he does it. They'll support that shit because in their heart of hearts, they don't really want to see that fight, man. They don't want to know. They don't really want to know which one of them is better. They want to be able to keep talking shit while they're still able to talk shit, while an outcome hasn't been decided. And the worst part of it is, you know what?
Anything could happen.
You run the risk of the fight going sour the longer you delay this thing. I mean, Anthony Joshua's not invincible, and neither is Deontay Wilder. One or both of these guys may end up taking a loss that they have to bounce back from. In which case, if that were to happen, you'd have to build the fight back up again because it wouldn't have the same momentum that it already has. But these guys are happy to run those risks because in their heart of hearts, they don't want to see that fight. They don't want to know who's the best any more than Wilder does. Wilder's made his concerns very clear. He's made it clear why he's holding up the fight and what it's all about. So at this stage, it's not even a question of who's stalling it.
At this point in time, it ain't even about the belts no more, baby. The only way this fight is gonna happen, if it's 50-50, I don't care what it is. At this point in time, it ain't even about the belts no more, baby.
We know who's stalling it, and we know why they're stalling it. At this point, the question is, how much longer do they intend to keep stalling? How much longer are we going to have to wait? You know, I look at how the fans are reacting to this because the fans are integral to this entire fiasco. The fans are integral to it, and they have their role to play the same way the fighters and the promoters do. Because rest assured, it's your money they're trying to get at. It's you who they are trying to appeal to. So in that way, you and me have our role to play.
This does our patronage.
And I look at how Wilder's fans treat the situation, and I think to myself, these guys are mentally ill. You've got to have a mental disorder for you to be in such deep denial that you cannot assign the blame where the blame belongs. That these guys are in such deep denial that they refuse to acknowledge that it's your pony in the show that's holding this thing up. So if you really want to see it and it bothers you that you haven't yet and you're not about to, well, you got to assign the blame where the blame belongs, and that blame goes to your guy. And he just sat there on Saturday night and let it be known to the boxing community at large.
We'll come patient, come time, and I just want you guys to have patience and give us a little time to make this thing happen.
What the holdup is. He's the one who's telling you guys to be patient. He's the one who's telling you guys to wait, while Eddie Hearn and his team and just everybody over there on Joshua's side of it have made him what, 5 offers now? How many more fucking offers do they have to make this guy for him to want this fight? You know what Wilder's doing? Wilder's doing the equivalent of me and you. You got, one of you guys out there listening to this video, me and you, I tell you, yeah, I'll fight you if you walk into traffic. Now, we all know you're not about to walk into traffic, but that thereby neutralizes any chances of me fighting you, because I can always say, well, he didn't walk into traffic, so I'm not going to fight him. Well, that's what Wilder's doing. You're asking for astronomical amounts of money. You know they're not going to give you. They've already offered you well over anything you have made and will make. With a Kalnaki, with a Ortiz, and even in a Fury rematch. They've already offered you well above anything you stand to make with all those other fighters. And it's still not enough. So how much more do they got to sweeten the deal for you to want this fight?
He don't want it.
Leads me to believe that, well, Wilder doesn't want this fight that bad, and his fans don't seem to either, because they're happy watching reruns, or at least they're going to pretend to be, if that's what it comes to. If it comes to a pointless Ortiz rematch, they'll pretend that they want to see it, because that is the depth of their denial. That's the depth of their mental illness. They'll pretend that that's a good fight, and the boxing world was demanding that, and that fight needed a rematch. They'll endorse it, because that is the depth of their denial, their stubbornness, and their mental illness. Because I firmly believe that most of these guys you see defending Deontay Wilder, get a good long look at these fucking guys and tell me you don't think they're mentally ill.
Motherfuckers are sick.
You can see Deontay Wilder saying these things. You can hear him saying these things, and your mind can't deal with the reality of that. So you disavow it and block it out altogether. And you'll go as far as spinning your own narrative, creating your own separate version of events that doesn't exactly align with reality, because reality is Wilder made it known why he's stalling and what it's all about.
We want to make sure we get the best and the most money that's possible.
But you don't want to address that. You don't want to have to deal with that. So you're going to go left field. You're going to go left field. You're going to create your own story that isn't corroborated by any facts whatsoever.
Delusions.
All to circumvent
reality.
The truth.
They're mentally ill.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, if reality upsets you so much that you have to create a separate one, that is a form of psychosis. These fucking guys are mentally ill, man. Because, I mean, in all seriousness, you'd have to be. You'd have to be to spin this many yarns and come up with this many false narratives to deny the realities of this situation. You'd have to be mentally ill. We look at the recent comments from Deontay Wilder's trusted manager, Shelly Finkel, and he says that he sees Joshua or Fury as more likely for 2020. So this is a reiteration of what we already knew, that they're not trying to fight Anthony Joshua this year. And even though they don't have any outstanding mandatories because they just took care of theirs. You know, Brazil, that was your mandatory, right? You wanted to take care of your mandatory, right? All right, you already did that. And you've only got one belt, so you have no other mandatories. So at this point in the juncture, whoever you decide to fight, that would be a voluntary title defense. You would be putting voluntary title defenses ahead of an undisputed unification fight.
Why?
So how bad do they really want that fight when they're willing to fight just about anyone else?
Except Joshua.
Except for Anthony Joshua. How bad do you... I mean, seriously. At some point, a person's own common sense has to come into it. That how could fighting Luis Ortiz again, who's done absolutely nothing of note since having lost to Deontay Wilder, how does fighting him again strike you as being more appealing than fighting for the undisputed heavyweight championship? And why is it that there's no outcry, no uproar from Deontay Wilder's fans?
There isn't.
They're not demanding better of what they like to call their champion. They're not demanding better of him. I mean, how is it that he's putting the most important fight in the heavyweight division on the back burner to fight a guy that he beat already in a pointless rematch? I mean, the first fight was great, but we all saw the outcome. And Luis Ortiz hasn't done anything of note since then that would warrant a rematch. Yet there's no outcry from his fans. They're not demanding better of their quote-unquote champion.
They never do.
What are we really saying here? That Luis Ortiz will get to fight Deontay Wilder 2 times before Anthony Joshua gets to fight him once? That Luis Ortiz will get to fight Deontay Wilder 2 times before Dillian White will get to fight him once? Is that what we're saying? Now, the mentally ill boxing fans that Deontay Wilder's core support is comprised of, those guys...
They'll play pretend.
They'll pretend that this is an exciting matchup, that a rematch needed to happen. They'll go as far as doing that. And you know what? Maybe in their heart of hearts, they actually rather see Wilder fight Luis Ortiz a second time because they don't want to know what would happen if Wilder fought Joshua. The thought of that frightens them. Oh, they'll sit there and say that Wilder knock out Joshua. He can't knock out a guy that he isn't about to fight, you know. You making your cockamamie prediction of what may or may not happen in the fight is irrelevant when the fight itself isn't happening. Because nobody wins if the fight don't happen. So you telling me that is pissing in the wind. I chalk it up to them vicariously living through Deontay Wilder because he exemplifies many of the same characteristics that they do. That he is unreasonable and temperamental in all the ways that they are unreasonable and temperamental. That he is illogical how they are illogical. That he is greedy and self-entitled the way that they are greedy and self-entitled. And that his contradictory nature mirrors their contradictory nature.
I want all the belts, though. You know, I keep saying it, and every time I say it, I feel this fire inside my chest.
I don't care what it is. At this point in time, it ain't even about the belts no more, baby.
Because you can prove them wrong. You can go as far as catching these guys in a lie or debunking an inaccurate statement that these guys make. You can go as far as proving these guys wrong and pulling up the corroborating evidence. And these guys, they won't take responsibility for it, you understand? They won't acknowledge that they've been proven wrong because they don't have the maturity and the hierarchy of thought to do that. And this childlike and infantile kind of behavior that they exhibit, coincidentally, is also exhibited by their champion, by Deontay Wilder, whose overall lack of tact and character is mirrored by his fans. They look at his greed as virtue. They contradict themselves just about as much as he contradicts himself, because these guys will say anything, and you can shoot down all the bullshit that they peddle, but they won't be held accountable to it any more than he's held accountable for his contradictions. That his bullshit mirrors their bullshit. So of course they're gonna support him, because they see themselves in him. The universal law, birds of a feather flock together. He's full of shit, and so are his fans. That's why whenever Deontay Wilder is discussed, if you ever engage in a conversation regarding Deontay Wilder, his professional record, with one of his fans, and do that at your own peril, you know, it's your funeral. But that's why whenever you discuss this guy with one of his own fans, you know, it's seldom a conversation about the sport of boxing, because the boxing aspect of it is actually pretty clear, you know. He's a bronze medalist, Joshua is a gold medalist. He's got 1 world title in 42 fights, Joshua's got 3 world titles in 22 fights. Wilder's marquee value generates X amount of dollars, and Anthony Joshua's marquee value greatly dwarfs that. Even when they're having a fight in the same city. Think about it this way. Wilder's last fight, where was it? The Barclays. Did it sell out?
No.
No. Didn't sell out, and it's a smaller venue than the Garden, a bigger, more historic venue than the Barclays Center. But once again, these guys don't acknowledge any of those facts that, okay, Deontay Wilder's been around for 11 years. This guy's still trying to raise his marquee value? I mean, you had a head start. This guy got here after you. He shouldn't even be in the same stratosphere as you. But he is, and then some. And I reiterate, these basic matters of fact are not matters that his fans will acknowledge. They will put both index fingers in both their ears and try to tune out the truth. Because that's the only way they can cope with the reality of it.
Denial.
That your pony in the show, the guy you most identify with, is playing second fiddle. And the best that he could do is attach his name to that of Anthony Joshua's so that he can garner some kind of marquee value, because you were here before him, but you didn't start becoming relevant until he came in the picture. So here we are today. And are we really closer to that fight? I mean, do you guys feel closer to that fight? You know, these guys, Wilder's fans, they're convinced. They've convinced themselves that, you know, he really wants that fight, and this is acceptable behavior. When the reality of it is, okay, Anthony Joshua's team, at least that side of the argument, they've made this guy about 5 consecutive offers, each one bigger than the last. Whereas Deontay Wilder has done little more than send an email that didn't even have a contract in it.
Fuck.
And to them, you know, it's okay, it's permissible. Whereas I'm here wondering if there were any real enthusiasm from Wilder's side to have that fight. If they really wanted that fight, then where are the new offers from Wilder's side? Why aren't they making more offers to this guy? You claim his marquee value has gone up. You claim his stock has gone up. Okay, if all of that is true, and he's everything that you say he is, then why isn't he the one making offers to Joshua? He should still be making offers to him right now. Why have the vast majority of offers to see the fight get made come from the same side? How is it that they've made Wilder 5 offers, whereas he's only made them 1, and it's questionable whether or not that was even a real offer? I mean, he's all that in a bag of chips, right? So he should be able to pay Anthony Joshua the kind of money that he normally makes. But we all know the truth. We all know that these guys' earning power is nowhere in the same neighborhood. They're miles apart. Wilder can't afford to pay Joshua what he normally makes, but Joshua can afford to pay Wilder several times over what he makes. And he's offered him that. He has tried to give him that, to no avail, because Wilder keeps shooting it down. Ladies and gentlemen, in all seriousness, whenever we broach the subject of Joshua versus Wilder, whenever we revisit that topic, it ends up being a recap of things that we already know. Because where here today there is evidence that Wilder is stalling, guess what? I told y'all that shit last year. Last year before he fought Tyson Fury, last year before any of this new shit popped up. I told y'all last year this guy was stalling, and he's going to keep stalling. So, you know, this really isn't new news. This is just a reiteration of what I already knew.